That was fun. They call it a PSD, physical security detachment. You're basically just, it's like Secret Service and everything else. I got to do that a lot for a lot of people. Former Chief of Staff, General Ordinero, was on his detail, which was intimidating because he's like 8 inches taller than me. He's a beast,
Return2Roots podcast. We are welcoming back our brother Craig, who has been on the show previously. This time, we will be talking about his position, his experience. Without further ado, Craig, welcome to this show.
Are you just trying to make my job harder, Yogi? I'm just
Of
curious.
course.
I'm sorry, Craig.
Just a little bit.
You gotta at least space the Chris and the Craig like half a second, please. It makes it easier to cut. Hey, brother Craig, thanks for coming on. I don't think I'm going to cut that, guys. I'm going to leave that because I think
I
it's
don't see anything wrong with it.
What about you guys?
I was welcoming both of you guys.
Craig, I'm pretty sure in the previous recording he referred to you as Chris as well. Correct me if I'm wrong.
And people called me Greg. The worst butchering of my name was on a Starbucks cup. I had a name badge that had my name on there, just my first name and my position at the time in like 200 font. The young lady puts KREGG on the cup. And I was like, no. And I'm with my peer group, and they're like, you gonna say something? I was like, oh, of course I'm gonna freaking say something. I was like, hi, can she read? And the guy's like, what are you talking about? I was like, I hold the cup up right next to my badge. And he's like, I should have fired her like last week. I was like, it's okay. She made me Norwegian, so I was.
Oh, man. Yeah. Hey, Craig, thanks for coming on here, dude. What?
No, thanks for having me, guys.
Seriously, it's good. We've been meaning to sit down and record with you for a while, but you have been doing a lot of amazing things out there, not just for your community, but actually the nation. You've been running around, actually the world, if I'm not mistaken, because you've been trying to, you've been outside of the state as well, correct?
I was in Calgary all last week. Yeah.
Wow, that is just amazing to be able to be in that position where you can do that. So what is the best way for people to get a hold of you?
My phone number, 520-678-3551. The best email address on here as well.
Hey, Craig, don't worry about it because they will be able to see it in the comments below. Everybody, look in the comments below if you want to see how to get a hold of Craig. That's awesome, dude. So and you answer, you talk to people.
Oh, absolutely.
So one thing that I'm going to ask you is, it was a little while before, you transitioned a little while back, right? Not that long, but
9 years ago. Yeah.
So I think that you have some really relevant experience because you've transitioned during, OIF, OEF, all that. I think that a lot of us can really relate to you because you're getting a lot more of us that have only known that. What books or media or podcasts or Netflix series that you really enjoyed did you read or wish you could have read during your transition?
My favorite book, I've mentioned this before, is written by Tom Brokaw, called The Greatest Generation, where he went around with folks that served in World War II and interviewed a bunch of folks. He interviewed the ladies who were keeping up the home front, in the warehouses and those massive facilities making tanks and planes and stuff like that. And that was pretty cool because I've actually read it. I probably lost count how many times I read it because when I was at the selection course, that was the one book I would read over and over and over again during downtime. Ended up getting passed around with all the guys several times just to kind of, have something else to do, get outside your thoughts. I can't say there's a specific show or anything that helped me for transition. What kept my my sense of humor up was definitely Seinfeld, because every day is a mother loving Seinfeld day, man. And I will call it out in that moment. I'll be like, hey, you know what this is? This is a Seinfeld moment, you know. So, um, but and I had a good mentor, you know, I really did. So that's what really helped me.
Let's go back to your beginnings
Okay.
before you joined the military. What made you want to join? And did you think it was going to be a career experience? Were you testing the waters, or how was that?
No, I always wanted to. One, I wanted to piss off my dad because he was in the Navy, so I knew I was going to join the Army. So you know, so little dig. Um, but as soon as I graduated from high school, I had three options. I could go to Annapolis, so my dad would have been really happy with that. And then I could have been a musician for the Phoenix Symphony, or take a scholarship and go to college. So it was a 2 year scholarship that turned into three. I was friends with my Army recruiters at the time, and there was never any pressure because I told them, I said, hey, I do want to join. Just let me finish this chapter first. So I went to college, and then uh, when the end of my third year was coming up, I said, all right, I'm ready. You know, we'd been playing golf together. We went out and had beers together, stuff like that. And they said, okay, cool. Here's how we're going to get you in the path that you want to go. And I wanted to go military police, but it was closed completely. And they said, here's what's going to happen. We're going to put you in an MOS that in a year and a half from now is going to be overstrength. And I was like, why? Like, they're like, trust us. I said, okay. So they sent me to field artillery reconnaissance and stuff like that. And just like they said, a year and a half later, they're asking who wants to change. And they say, hey, Hannum, don't worry about it. You're already locked in to go to military police school. All you got to do is sign here. I said, fantastic. So that was kind of nice. And it helped with acceleration and promotion. I went from E1 to E4 in a year and a half. And then I went to military police school and hit the ground running. Everything's history from there. It was great because I got, you know, the inventory of schools that are available for military police is so vast, because if the commander can justify you needing it for whatever, they're sending you. It was awesome. And I'm glad I was able to stick with it, you know, the rest of my time, because well, I think it shaped me to who I am today. Yeah, I always wanted to serve. There was never a doubt in my mind. And a little dig on the Navy guys. No one plays Navy as a kid. They always play Army as a kid. Just throwing that out there, you know. So.
That's up to debate. We'll just let you win this because you are our guest, so we want you to feel welcome,
Oh
right?
yeah, like we're gonna hold back.
We're not gonna talk about the reality of facts, but it's okay.
You know, the reality is that Craig has probably ridden on more boats than we have.
You know, I did go to boat crew training in Coronado. And I asked my commander. I said, "Why are you sending me to boat crew training?" He's like, "Well, you're going to Iraq." I was like, "Yeah, I know, but I don't understand why I'm going on a." You know, he's like, "Well, what if you have to be on the Tiger Sea Euphrates?" I was like, "Okay, far out, cool." Do I remember anything from it? Yeah, at night when I thought I was going to die. And you got all those freaking people, you know, the onlookers, the tourists going, hey, what are those guys doing? Well, they're trying not to drown. That's what we're doing, you know. And then when you feel something brush up against your leg in the darkness of water, yeah, no. I'd rather go toe to toe with a mountain lion or a bear or an enemy tank than anything under the water, because Leviathan's real, okay? That megalodon's down there somewhere just waiting to eat somebody. So, no, I'm good. So I have a lot of respect for guys who float.
I'm right there with you, man. The water thing, I'm always like, I mean, I'm not a bad swimmer, but definitely out there in the ocean, you're like, you don't know what's below you, you don't know what's around
Okay.
you, and just like that, you could be underwater, don't know which way is up, you know. Um, yeah, for real, bro. So, you said that you were military police, and
Yeah.
I know before we were recording, we were talking about one of your cooler gigs that you got to do. Can you tell us like one of the cool spots that you got to do while you were in the military? Like, what was one of those most memorable positions that you were put in or had to do? You know what I'm saying?
Bodyguard duty. Yeah, bodyguard duty. That was fun. They call it a PSD, physical security detachment. You're basically just, you know, like it's like Secret Service and everything else. I got to do that a lot for a lot of people. Former Chief of Staff General Ordinero was on his detail, which was intimidating because he's like 8 inches taller than me. And he was a beast, may you rest in peace and all. So yeah, I got to do a lot of cool stuff there, and got to go out with Robin Williams for a minute, that because he was my favorite actor comedian, and you got to do. It was like out of the blue. You get to do cool stuff. FBI SWAT school, hardest school I've ever been to, without a doubt, and would never have been selected for that if I hadn't crossed over to military police. And then just all the cool advanced training that they send you to, search and rescue, wildland fires, you know, uh, all the FEMA stuff they make you go through, but then you go and you take it a step further and you're actually doing it in the field. Got to guard the space shuttle once when I was at Fort Bliss. That was iconic. I was a little pissed off because you couldn't take pictures. So I'm like, okay, why not? They're like, well, you can't. I was like, okay, fine. Did I break that rule? A little bit. Yeah. But no, I just did. And you get to meet people. You got to save people's lives, which was cool. Take down drug dealers. And I don't know. I just love it. I don't miss getting shot at. I do miss the guys. I miss that camaraderie. I think like most of us do. Every now and then I'll get a call from a mom or a dad here in the valley or wherever, and they'll say, "Hey, my kid wants to join the military. Can you tell him the truth?" Yeah, because I was never a recruiter. They tried to make me one, and I made sure I failed that. I was like, "You don't want me as a recruiter." And I told this kid the cold hard truth. I was like, "You will deploy." Well, how do you know that? Well, he's signing up to be an infantryman. The dude's going to deploy. Tell them the truth. That way, their expectations are at a baseline. And the fact that we can't be honest with folks, especially nowadays, that's dangerous. So yeah, and I didn't want to be a drill sergeant. I'm not going to be a skill level 10 ranger. It was not my way. I would have gotten fired because I knew I didn't have the temperament for it. I'd just rather be in the field with my guys to be an operator. That's what I loved. You could go from a search and rescue mission in the morning to doing something, downright violent, that night. To be able to flip that switch from use of force continuum to rules of engagement. The nickname for military police in the U.S. Army is actually called force of choice. And we get scalped when we deploy. Once a unit commander finds out that a platoon or a company-sized element of military police are showing up, yeah, they just start scalping. Take a squad here, squad there, and just move them all over the area of operation.
What would you share to anyone that is trying to join the military right now? And they came to you, Craig, I want to join the military.
Mm-hmm.
What advice could you give me? Obviously, the mindset is that I want to do special operations, special forces. But I don't know what to do. I don't know anything else besides that cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
How would you answer that question?
I would say, that's admirable, really. And any reason somebody wants to join, it's admirable. They volunteered. Um, I joined to escape an abusive environment. My dad and stepmom. And if someone's coming to me and say, "Hey, I want to go straight into special operations," I would say, "Don't. Just pause. Why don't you go in, sign up for 4 years, see if you like the environment as it is, because it's not the same. When you're military police, special operations, whatever, the operational tempo is out of control. It's great. The training, it's all the time. It's 3.5 weeks out of a month you're training at your task. Why don't you figure out if you even like the military structure, being told what to do, when to do it, how to do it, with not much guidance. Just that fortitude of, we're trusting you with this. Go forth and do great things, and see if it's for you. Grow up a little bit, especially if a kid is 18, right out of high school. Grow up a little bit, man. Learn yourself, because once you get immersed into special operations, it's 100 miles an hour, and it's no joke, and it's not for everybody, and that's okay. It truly isn't. I've got a good friend. He did that. He went straight into special operations right after military police school. Here he gets his certification to be an MP, and he jumps right into group, and he loved it. He was in it for like 10 years until he broke his back on one of his jumps, and they said, "Hey, we can't use you anymore. You're okay. You're fit for duty, but you can't pass the physical requirements to be in this arena." So they sent him back to the field, and he became suicidal as a result, because it destroyed him. My point with that is, mature a little bit. I had an advantage of maturity because I was actually one of the older guys in the platoon during basic training in AIT at Fort Sill because I went to college first. I actually turned 22 in basic training, and I was one of the older guys. I got my partying days out of the way already, you know. I was on a college campus that was technically a dry campus, so what do you think we did? It wasn't dry when we were there. We'd go out to the rodeo arenas and do our thing. You see these guys come in at 18 who aren't prepared emotionally, mentally, especially if you're going to throw them into a battle space where it's consistent war, especially the operating environment that we are in today, ever changing. Every single day it's changing. It used to be TTPs, tactics, training, procedures would change once a day, every other day. They would figure out what we're doing, so we would counter it, et cetera, et cetera. It seems to be, here's the tactics this morning. It's going to change by this afternoon because of the advancement of technology. Yeah, I would say mature a little bit.
I 100% right there behind you. And I honestly feel the way that it used to be for special operations and for like even military police, those kind of advanced skill level um, jobs, they should have these service members not go straight into doing them. I honestly think that it actually, if they could kind of go back to the old model where they brought somebody in and they trained them on a skill or the trade or something like that, and then they transition into becoming a special operator and they transition into becoming a military police, they'll have an idea of what their demographic looks like. They'll also experience a transition right there where they learn how to change their identity. And like what you said, with what happened to that soldier when he was forced to transition because of an injury, um, they're a little bit more flexible in that because they've already been trained how to transition into that, and now they're going to be able to transition out of that because they've already made that kind of transition, if that makes sense.
Oh, it makes perfect sense. It's just in my day, to even sign up for Special Forces Assessment Selection, you had to be in the Army a minimum 2 years. You had to be at least an E4 rank, period, minimum. And when I crossed over from field artillery and stuff to military police, I get to Germany and they said, hey, because all I did was correspondence courses my first 2 years. And you guys may not remember this, but correspondence books used to be yellow, right? It was a little book.
Oh yeah, brother.
Good.
I've definitely done correspondence.
Same age. Thank God. Okay. So they used to call my barracks room the fire hazard because I would order these books. I'd read over them, overnight. Boom. I'm in the testing center next day, maxing them out. I had maxed out all my correspondence points for promotion because I wanted to learn because the first platoon sergeant I had, Sergeant First Class Miller, he said, what you should do is learn how to be a soldier for the next 2 years. He's like, you're going to want to go out and party and stuff like that. He goes, that's fine. He goes, but focus everything, most of your energy on learning how to be a soldier your first 2 years. I said, all right, cool. He goes, take correspondence courses. I was like, in what? He's like, everything. I'm like, all right. So I did, mechanical hydraulics, et cetera, all these things for the piece of the weapon. I was in a paladin, so I knew everything back to front about that piece of machinery. Advanced stuff, chemistry, weather. All these things. I just maxed it out, and I had a wall against my in my barracks room that was stacked with these yellow books. So when I get to Germany, I just did this MP school, and the first place they send me to is Europe. And as soon as I get there, the first time I was like, hey, we're sending you the promotion board. I was like, I didn't know what that meant. I've only done like Soldier of the Month, Soldier of the Year kind of boards. I didn't know what promotion board meant. I just barely made E4 by the time I shipped out. And he's like, no, you're maxed out. He's like, you'll be a sergeant in 2 months. And I was like, oh, hold up. He's like, what? I was like, no. He's like, excuse me? I was like, well, first, Sergeant, I said respectfully, I have only been a soldier, going on 2 years now. He's like, okay. I was like, and this is a brand new MOS for me. I was like, and they're going back and forth to the Balkans with frequency. And I said, hey, can I learn how to do this job first? He said, well, I'm going to make you a team leader. I said, okay, make me a team leader. That's fine. I said, but I'm not ready for stripes yet because I need to learn how to do this job. And he goes, what, you want to be perfect? I was like, no, I just want to be proficient. He's like, You're kidding. I was like, no. He goes, well, it's a nice pay raise. I was like, I didn't join the military to get rich. He's like, I respect that. So it was cool. But as soon as I said that, I put a target on the back of my head because now they're sending me to more schools, and just kept sending me, everywhere, just doing, and it was great. I mean, it was really great. Um, and I remember I got back from Germany. I wouldn't shut up talking about Germany for like at least a year and a half, if not longer. Like, oh, this is how we did it there, because it was memorable, man. It was.
Where at in Germany were you?
I was at Rose Barracks, home of the First Armored Division in Bad Kreuznach, Germany, in between Wiesbaden and K-Town.
Oh, K-Town. Yeah, I was in Simbach, bro.
Oh, so you hate Grafenbeer as much as I do, and Vilsec and all that crap. See, Davey doesn't know. Yogi doesn't know. There's a range out there called Grafenbeer, and I swear it's perpetual winter. And you're in there qualifying with small arms in a blizzard, and you have chem lights on your 50-meter target because you can't see that damn thing. It's no
No.
joke. So,
Nope,
yeah.
too cold for me.
Oh, I tried. Oh god, at least once a quarter, trying to get on the detail that protects Garmisch, the resort area. Yeah, it's gorgeous. But no, never got picked up. That's okay.
That place is. I had a lot of fun in K-Town. A lot of fun. Too much fun. I
Yeah.
spent way too much money there.
Well, back in my day, it was still the German mark. So you could basically live off your cola. That's what we did, cola and TDY, because the German market was so nice.
It was really nice. Per diem there, bro. Because every time I wasn't stationed there, I was always deployed there for part of a time. And so we got per diem there, and it was pretty nice.
Yeah, it was nice to go TDY there. I didn't like sticks training. Sticks training, no. Mm-mm. We actually cheated. We were supposed to stay in the tent when it was like 30 below. Now we went inside the small town out there, and we got a hotel. And we showed up the next morning at 4 o'clock like it was nobody's business. They're like, okay, you guys survived the night. I'm like, look, no, we're smarter than you. We freaking went inside the town, man. And guys are coming out of the tents just freezing because the heaters wouldn't work when it was potbelly stoves. Yeah, yeah. So we
Those
cheated a little bit.
good old days.
Yeah, when you could get away with it. Now everybody's got a phone. They're tracking you. Yogi, you've got this real pensive look on your face, man. What's up?
I'm listening. I'm observing. I'm watching. I'm learning. I didn't go to Germany. I didn't get a chance to.
He's plotting, he's planning, he's trying to get one
Yeah,
of us. No,
scheming a little bit, a little bit.
I did go to Croatia, Ukraine, and other places around the coast. I mean, being on a carrier, it's certain certain places you're able to go to,
Yeah.
but a lot of them you're not. You know what I mean? Uh, well, there's a lot of limitations to the places that you're able to actually anchor out or visit. But all of Europe, absolutely amazing. One of my favorite ones, uh, Portugal, um, and then from Portugal, Greece, I would say. France, not bad, but oh, Italy, Italy was phenomenal,
Yeah,
and it's
with the Vilsec in Italy.
yeah. So I know we talked about this a little bit prior to Craig, but I want to dive more into a very more specific, very depth feeling. Right? You talked about having to run away from home because it was not a good environment. And then from there, you joined the military. You were obviously joining it. You were joining the army to go against your father, or to spite of him, right? But I do believe that you've had a very thoughtful um, plan to being able to join the military prior to doing it. What advice would you give someone that is trying to run away from an environment like that to not bring all of that baggage with them and to make the military successful?
Well, it's funny you say don't bring the baggage with you, but the drill sergeants could tell. And I remember I think it was the second or third night, they bring everybody together and they ask you, why'd you join the military? And guys are going around the room, patriotism, it's a legacy. My dad's dad, my dad's dad's dad, da da da. And I'm just following through in their footsteps. And you hear this stuff. I was the last one that was asked, and because I always had this thing about make sure I'm like close to the back, because I like to observe and just watch. I always had that. And when they asked me, I told them. And I remember this one kid. Oh God, I can see his face. I can't remember his name. We were in the fast track program together. He's like, that's a stupid reason to join the Army. And the drill sergeant, he's like, is it? He's like, you all volunteered. It's noble. Whatever your reason for joining is noble. You volunteered. So when he said that, I never forgot that. Because I've had people, during my career say, oh, this guy joined the Army to get out of there was nothing happening in his town. There was drugs. There was this. I'm like, who cares why he joined? He's here now. He volunteered. They only all volunteer for us in the world, and you're going to put them down for the reason for joining? Look what it can make them. So, you're right. Kind of let go of what got you there and move forward on the reason why you left in the first place and see what kind of person it turns you into. And that's what I'll tell folks. Hey, you're in a bad way. You're right. You don't make money. You're in a town that it's falling apart. The economy's this and that. It's abusive. You've been going from your uncle's house to your cousin's house to your grandma's house because you try to get away from everything that's happening in your home. And once you get ready to join, get ready for two things. You've got to be physically ready. That's the easy part. Let's be honest. Whether it's boot camp or basic training, it's easy. Because when you look back, you're like, that wasn't so bad. In the middle of it, the first 2 weeks, it's like, oh my God, am I going to survive this? Am I going to die? Why are we running? And where's the sun? How does the military control the sun in the morning? In like, why are we working on a 36-hour workday? This is insane. How come I can only get so much sleep? All these things start hitting you. Just focus on the physical is easy. Prepare for that. And I'm not talking push-ups, sit-ups, and whatever the physical fitness test is. You're not going to master the 2-mile run. You need to master 6 or 8. Don't just look to pass the push-ups with the minimum. Max them out. So prepare yourself for that. My recruiters, they help me with that. The other part is the psychological. It is designed to make everybody even, mentally, physically, emotionally, physiologically, psychologically. It is going to break everybody down to say that we're going to tear you down as a unit for one specific goal, so that when you guys start building back up, you're doing it together. And those who suffer together bond. So I always tell people, get ready for that. When they say, oh my God, is the equipment heavy? Yeah, the equipment's heavy. That's not what I'm talking about. Oh, am I gonna be able to sleep as much as I want to? No. And just so get rid of that. Oh, is the food good? Not all the time. You're asking the wrong questions. That's why I knew I was not going to be good as a recruiter, because I'm like, they're going to break you down. And when you hear about people getting injured during basic training, I'm like, okay, that's actually a good thing. I talked to this guy a while back, and he's like, well, why is that good? I was like, because it wasn't meant for you. If you're going to get hurt to such a degree that you can't even pass basic training or boot, it wasn't meant for you. And that's good. Because what happens if the real injury happens, you're downrange and guys are depending on you. Then I always tell them, follow 3 rules. And you learn this, you learn this in the military, to be honest. Rule number 1, if you're going to be somewhere at a certain time, be there. Okay. Number 2, when you get there, do the job you said you were going to do when you arrive. And number 3, make sure everybody else is taken care of, down to the basics of just having water before you take a drink out of your canteen. That's leadership. Learn how to do that. And you don't have to be in a position of leadership. Just be that peer leader that everyone else can depend on, going, hey, he's got me. So when the drill sergeant made me a platoon guide, I was like, what the hell is that? He's like, well, every time they screw up, we yell at you. I was like, oh yeah? Okay. Bring it on. Oh yeah, he wasn't lying. I'll never forget him. Senior drill sergeant Schillinger. Now that dude was Norwegian. He was huge. Big guy, but just the chillest guy in the world. He'd call me in his office yelling, Hannum, get your butt up here, in more prolific terms. I closed the door. He's like, all right, sit down. We need to talk about the day. Let's talk about tomorrow. Grab me a beer, grab one for yourself. But this is back in 95, so it was a little different. So it was just, he wrote me this really great letter when I graduated, a letter of recommendation, stuff like that. And he says, don't show this to anyone. I said, drill sergeant, I'm confused. He's like, when you get to Fort Stewart, Georgia, do not show this to your first sergeant. He's like, this is for you. I was like, okay, can I ask why? He's like, because he's going to kill you if you show up and you think you're this badass macho freaking private first class going, hey, here you go. On top of the freaking game. Look at that. So here's what I need. I need a driver. I need my own vehicle. No. He's like, don't do that. This is fruit between you and I. I was like, okay. And I didn't. And I saw guys that would do that. Say, hey, I was honor graduate. I'm like, oh, yippee. Because you graduated in the same classification as everybody else. And that's the third part I always go to. Leave your ego at the door. Leave your arrogance at the door. You haven't earned it yet. You know, I always tell people, if your ego has low self-esteem, you know, be careful on who you talk to, because there's always somebody out there better than you. And until you've actually earned arrogance, and I had a kid ask me that, oh God, 2-3 years before I retired. He walks in, he's like, hey, first sergeant, I need, you know, to pick your brain about something. He goes, I just gotta let you know that I think I'm the best at this. And yeah, I know that sounds arrogant. I was like, dude, you haven't earned the right to be arrogant yet. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, you haven't gotten promoted. He's like, what? I was like, you are not going to master this rank until you get promoted to the next one, and then the next one. And then when you actually earn your graduation certificate, which is retirement, or thank you for your service, and you finish out your contract appropriately, I was like, you haven't earned arrogance yet. You know, people say, well, that sounds counterproductive. Isn't arrogance a bad thing? No. Confidence is awesome, and you can be a little arrogant about it. That doesn't mean I go walking around, you know, the valley that I live in going, hey, I'm a badass. Trust me. Let me show you my exploits. Check out my love me wall. You know, no. Yeah.
With that, I want to ask you this. There's if you look at statistics, right? Unfortunately, a big majority of our military population that joins is because they are running away from something, right? Whatever that is.
Yeah.
Where they're trying to find their way, right? That's not the problem. The problem is that they do the military time, and some of us retire, and some of us don't, right? But instead of finding our way or using that time wisely to find our way in what we want to do, we tend to stay in this loop, and we don't break the cycle, right? So by the time that we retire and by the time that we transition out, we fall back into those learned bad behaviors, and then we have a harder time than necessary. What advice would you give to anyone that is thinking of joining or has already joined about breaking that cycle, breaking that wheel, and breaking that chain of their family, right? And being the change and not falling into that rut of continuing those negative traits once they transition out?
Yeah, that's a good one because, you know, with arrogance, you have to be humble at the same time. And whatever you joined, whatever your reason for joining, if you're still holding on to that and still doing the same kind of crap while you're in, it is going to backfire in the worst way. You know, let's be honest. Uniform Code of Military Justice makes it very clear that adultery can send your butt to prison. Okay. So say you get a guy who's a man whore. Hey, don't do that in the military. Okay. So you were late at your last job with frequency. Okay. Don't do that here. You know, everything you do or don't do can go against you. You're held to such a higher standard that whatever you left, if it was a criminal environment and you were fortunate enough to say to be accepted in the military, you better leave that behind you because it will catch up to you. And it's 1,000 times worse in the military when you commit a crime. We all know this. Imagine investing all the sweat and blood and tears and energy and the time it takes to just graduate to that point that you made for yourself, whether it be retirement or finish out your contract, 10 years, whatever it is. You screw up, it will affect you the rest of your life. And a less than honorable or bad conduct discharge is bad. That's what I would tell people. That why'd you join the Army? I had a kid, and he was involved in gangs pretty heavily. And he He was really humbled one day when I called him in my office. I said, "Hey, I want to make you the chief of the military police investigations unit, my detectives. Sometimes they do undercover stuff like that." And he goes, "Whoa, what? Do you think I deserve that? My last life, I was in a gang, and I there was drugs. Da, da, da." I was like, I get that, but that's not you anymore. I said, "Here's who you are. You're my top performer. Look what you left behind. Of course, and you earned this. I'm not giving it to you. You earned this. Congratulations. Now go forth and do great things." The last time I heard, he's still in the military. Leave at your core, your personal beliefs, your core beliefs, your values, all that jazz. Yeah, hold on to that. But you're now part of something that depends on you more than anyone else ever will. Those three worlds. I had a guy tell me he was a bit of a schmuck, and I don't keep toxic people in my life. And he was one of those guys that I said, "Hey, you and I are done here." And here's what he said. He goes, "Well, I don't know if I believe in those three rules." I was like, "Why not?" He said, "Well, let me ask you." And he's never served, mind you. So he said, "Well, let's talk about the battlefield." I was like, "Hey, careful." He's like, "What?" I said, "Be careful with your next words, brother." I said, "You're about to talk about military, right?" He goes, "Yeah." "In battlefield? Are you sure? Have you ever served?" He's like, "No." I said, "Yeah, I know. So be careful." He goes, "Well, what if that guy doesn't get to you because he gets killed on the battlefield?" Oh, man. I was like, "Let me explain something to you." I was like, that dude, to his dying breath, is doing everything he possibly can to make it to rule number one because he knows that there's people depending on you. And that's what I tell people. I say, you will never be dependent on more than any other career field in the world than you are like in the military. Because there's not always a backup. There's not always somebody else that can do your job. I know we always tell people to train up one up and one down, in case the worst does happen. But if we lose one person on the battlefield, it affects three immediately, in a negative way. And that's how I would reinforce, their leadership mantra, if you will, by saying that you're dependent on. I depend on you. The people you're serving depend on you. And anytime I had to send somebody out on a deployment, there was a lot of individual taskings in military police, K9 teams, stuff like that. I would tell them, "Hey," or we get called out to go do like the Olympics, security, and all the time. I say, "Don't forget, you're an ambassador of the United States." Like, "Well, no, I'm not." "Yes, you are. You wear the uniform. You're an ambassador. Act like it." And I would make it very clear that if you don't, I will hold you accountable. I had one guy tell me, "You're kicking me out of the Army." "No, you're kicking you out of the Army. I'm holding you accountable." "Sorry, man. Article 111, you got a DUI with your family aboard and you have an infant in a car seat. How can I entrust, you carrying a sidearm, pulling people over for criminal acts, whatever it might be, and to take human life at your discretion based on the elements existing?" I was like, "I can't." So yeah, you got to hold people accountable. And that's what it makes the military environment so special, is that accountability is so high, and yeah, that's why I fell in love with it. I knew my first 3 4 months at Fort Stewart, and not my favorite base, but I knew within those first 3 4 months that I was going to re-enlist after my 4 year was up, and I didn't hesitate. Now, did I question it sometimes? Yeah. I'm like, "Oh my God, do I want to do this again?" You got this company saying, "Hey, we have this lucrative offer for you." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not done." And that's just how I saw it. And once you enter, always going with the mindset that you're not done until someone tells you are, or a doctor says, "Hey, if you stay in past 20 and you get another blow to the head or your back, you might be in a cane the rest of your life." That's when you say, "Okay, cool, far out, I'm out."
Yeah, brother. I freaking this. I think you and I have a lot more in common than you probably even know. Um, I was also a runaway. Lived in multiple housing situations growing up. I was also an honor guard. Um, graduate, not honor guard. I was an honor graduate. I graduated high school with a 1.8, and I ended up becoming the top student in my military class.
Nice.
Statistically, I should have not been able to do that. And one thing that you talked about was the military training and why it should be hard. And I agree with you because I think hard times make hard men.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this is gender neutral. The military is hard in a controlled environment while they train. That controlled environment is crucial. You need to be hard when you have control because you train for those times that you have no control.
Yeah.
Where the enemy in the battlefield, the enemy at sea, the enemy in air, space, wherever, is not going to hold anything back to win. So it needs to be hard. And this is why I think that men and women who grow up in a very hard environment, once they get over their small mindedness after they go into the military and they realize that they're no longer a victim but a victor, they become one of the most influential team builders because they've been through real hard times. And that's actually a strength. And they utilize what everybody else says. Oh, you're white trash. Oh, you didn't graduate or go to college. Um, you had no mom and dad. You were raised by your grandparents. You were a runaway. Like you were a drug dealer. You were whatever you were before you military. That was in the past. This is the present. It's also kind of, and I'm kind of going on a rant here. Um, I know,
You're
but
allowed.
I, I think that it's something to be said, you know, that chief, the warrior, the sergeant, whoever is in charge of other men and women, being a leader isn't to demean those that are underneath you. It's about raising them up to replace you.
Yeah. 100%.
They need to be able to replace you. That that doesn't mean that it's all butterflies and unicorns and yogis riding a miniature pony, with
I'm gonna say it right. It's gonna be a miniature unicorn. All right.
okay, miniature unicorn, okay. But
Oh, man. Tough crowd.
it's not gonna, it's not like that. Like when we go to do the mission, that's where you reserve that harshness for the enemy. The enemy deserves that harshness. Your men, your women, they deserve your leadership. And it's not even your leadership. It's the people that were there before you. You owe it to them as well. So yeah, brother, what was it that actually what was that one reason that you joined the military? If you don't mind sharing that with us.
Well, uh, one reason why I joined the military, I wanted to be part of something bigger and better than me. And, when you see parades, the pomp and circumstance of the military, and you're like, wow, what does it take to wear that uniform? What an honor. And then when you do, you immerse yourself in it. And it's like you're saying, be a good leader. I had a great leader, brilliant commander. Robert Willis is his name. Um, he said, make sure when you get in leadership positions and you get promoted and your career, takes off, he's like, make sure you surround yourself with people who are better at everything than you. He's like, you should not be the best at everything in your unit. You shouldn't be the fastest, the strongest, the best shot, all that jazz, the best at tactics, et cetera, et cetera. No, make sure you surround yourself with people who are better at everything. Like you said, that way the next can be is ready to slide in because you're going to take it off one day. And a lot of guys struggle with that. Wait a minute, this is my last day in the Army. And I'm not going to lie, the last time I took off my uniform, yeah, it was. I didn't know it was going to be so ceremonial. I'm sitting there in the bedroom by myself. And I'm taking off. I was like, and it hit me as soon as I started undoing my laces on my boot. I was like, oh, wait a minute, hold on, let me just wear this a little bit longer. And then I was like, no, no, you just signed out. You rang the bell. It was 1,300. You have to prepare yourself to know that if you decide to make it a career, the uniform will come off one day. That's the graduation ceremony. That means well done, faithful servant. You survived, especially in a time of war. To make it to that point, you graduated. And I lost count how many times I would help guys out who were not prepared for that. They thought they were going to go all the way to 40 plus. I'm like, why would you want to do that to your body in the first place? 20 years is enough. That's good. And I got an argument with the guy, a spirited debate, I'll say. He said, well, I did 24. I didn't stop at 20. I was like, okay, well, you retired from the Air Force. So what'd you do in the Air
He was
Force?
calling you a quitter, Craig.
Yeah, pretty much. I said, well, I did 4 more years than you did. I said, cool. How many times did you deploy? He goes, well, what do you mean? Like in an overseas capacity? I was like, okay, sure, we'll do that. Well, I was at different Air Force bases. I said, did you ever deploy to a combat zone? He's like, no. I said, oh, see how I could judge? I said, I could judge you right now, but I'm not. Thank you for your service. I said, so you did 4 years more than me. Good job. Each person's circumstance is, unique. And then I always tell that to folks as well. Hey, while you're in, get as much as you can out of it, because the military as a whole, this massive machine, could care less about you as an individual. I mean, those are facts. One person's like, oh, how dare you say that? They're going to take care of me. No, you're going to take care of you. You're going to take care of your medical. You're going to take care of all the things that you need to do to sustain life. I was like, so take what you can from the military. Sign up for trainings. Well, I'll be away from my family. Yes. Sign up for this. Do that. Go here. Go to school if you want to. Learn a trade. Learn something that's going to help you on the outside, because it will end one day. And you can't go back and say, oh, man, I forgot to go here. No. Just like a soak it up.
I want to elaborate more on that, right? Um, a lot of us get lost in the moment of serving, right? And we become attached to, well, I would say almost every single one of us gets attached to our rank, our titles, um, military customs and courtesies, right? Um, However, very few of us actually plan continuously for the next steps ahead, right? And some of the excuses that we use are, well, I'm here right now. I'm focusing on being in the military. I'm focusing on doing my job right now. I'm focusing on taking care of my sailors. I'm focusing on everything else. I used to be part of that group, and I want to say, and I want to ask for your opinion, but sometimes I feel that's more of a cop out, trying to say, well, I'm focusing on all of these other things, so I'm not really going to take care of myself, right? I'm going to take care of everyone else, or pretend that I'm taking care of everyone else and doing all these wonderful things instead of preparing for myself. Something that has shifted my mindset about that has been the fact that we all know, as you mentioned earlier, that everybody that joins is going to get out, whether it's at 1 year, 20 years, 30 years, right? Or sometimes it's not planned and you get hurt, or something happens and it ends a lot sooner than what you wanted. But we save the getting ready for the next steps of our lives, and we put everything on hold instead of really living our lives as we're going through, right? Because we put the military as well, this is the most important part of our lives, right? Um, what are your thoughts behind that?
So when my retirement was approved, again, I surrounded myself with really, really brilliant leaders. I had bad ones. I had toxic leaders. Everybody does. Um, but I had a director. He was a civilian at the time, and he and I had known each other since I was a young Sergeant E5 and he was a major. and we just know each other. And now he's the director of emergency services for Fort Huachuca. And when he found out my retirement got approved, he goes, "Hey, we're going to prepare for the next steps." He's like, "In the next 4 weeks, here's what's going to happen." And I already done my time as a detachment sergeant, so I wasn't in a command position anymore, but I was back in running all law enforcement activities for the base, and that's search and rescue, everything. And he says, in the next 4 weeks, we're going to move you out of that position. I was like, whoa. I was like, I don't retire for, and this was October 2014. I was like, "Mr. Ortega, I'm not done for like over a year. I said, my retirement dates could be November 30th, 2015. He's like, "Yeah, but my leadership did this for me. I'm going to do the same thing for you." I was like, "What, put me out of a position that I'm in love with?" He's like, "Exactly." I said, "Okay, tell me why." He's like, "Because if I don't, you won't be ready for retirement because you're going to be worrying about everybody else out there like you do all the time." He's like, "You'll still be responding to calls. You're going to still do SWAT stuff. You're going to be doing stuff with the FBI and da da da, and up there in the mountains chasing bad guys with border patrol and all these things." And I was like, at first it was a kick in the gut. I was like, "Wait a minute." He's like, "Look, you are the best I've ever had." He's like, I truly mean that." He goes, "But if I don't take care of you," he's like, "your transition is going to be very stressful." And before I knew it, yeah, he had got the advice from some other folks. And my future supervisor, Kevin Mills, he's like, I'll take Hannum right now. I'll make him the NCOIC of my shop." And there wasn't that position, but I could care less what my last evaluation was going to be. I was done. And he says, "I'll make him NCOIC, and he'll just run the shop as he gets ready for his civilian position that they actually offered me, within that same week to be the program manager." And at first I didn't see the logic. I was like, "Well, who do you got's going to take over this position? It's an eight. I was a sergeant first class E7. And this is an 8 slot." He's like, "I'll find somebody. I won't find another you, but I'll find somebody." I was like, "Okay." And he did, and that was fine. But if that hadn't happened, to where, and that's where you got to take your ego out of it, because you're like, "Wait a minute, I'm really good at this." And it's like, no, no, no. I need to thank you for preparing me. Because if you hadn't, I got my Love Me book right here. My Love Me book would have been done. That had everything in chronological order, where I had the disc and an extra binder that I gave to the VA. So my VA benefits, my retirement, and my new job all started the same week. Everything was paid out. It started on time, because that's the biggest hurdle, is that VA hurdle, especially for retirees. So if he hadn't done that, yeah, I would not have been ready, and I probably would have delayed my retirement. And once you do that, the Army's like, "Oh, you want to delay it? Well, we're just going to pull it back anyways and send you to like South Korea again or something." So that's where people got to realize that, yeah, you are good at what you do. You love what you do. And people always say, "What do you mean you fell in love with the military?" You actually do. And you become so proficient at it that it's easy. Being a soldier was easy. And that's also a crutch the military has, because they kind of make it easy at a certain point. When you hit a certain rank, life is kind of chill. You can kind of come and go as you please, do your thing, yada, yada, yada. I would always tell guys, get ready. And if you're in a senior position, a leadership position, a command position, whatever, say, "Hey, get your change of responsibility squared away. Get that change of command ready. Because the day that you announce that you're retiring, you need to step down so you can focus on you. Otherwise, you won't have the time." And then it actually worked out, because it helped me learn the shop that I went into as an Army civilian. Get to know the people, how it works, because it's different from being in a position of authority where you say, "Do this, do that," and it gets executed, versus a position of influence where they can say, "We're not going to do what you say." I'm like, "Okay." You know, that's a mental struggle that I had to figure out my first 3 months as an Army civilian. Because I would show up to a dude's freaking office like, "Hey, normally I'm coming, here's what I'm going to do, et cetera, yada, yada." Now it's like, "How do you want to go forward with this? Here's what I recommend." You had to change your language. So be ready to hang the hat up, so to speak.
I think that 100% you need to, just like joining the military, physically get ready and mentally get ready to
Yeah.
get out. And on our show, we tell everybody around 24-month period, they need to start getting their plans,
Yeah.
if they haven't been planning this entire time, that they're going to get out, because just like you got in, you're going to have to get out.
Mhm.
It's not a ride. Many of us ride until our ticket is punched. So we're all going to end up getting out.
I think it's far more challenging, the transition to go back into civilian service or just the civilian market. Getting in is easy. I always tell people, I was like, oh, I was like, that's easy. Basic training, that's easy. Your advanced training, that's easy. Because the military has this way of every next school they send you to gets higher up on this ladder where it's more difficult. Then you look back going, okay, that was easy. Okay, that course, the basic non-commissioned officer course, yeah, that was easy. Then you go to advanced non-commissioned officer course, like, oh my God, what is cool? I don't, this is hard. Everything gets harder and harder. But it is harder to transition from military service back into civilian world. One, it's just a daunting process just to turn your freaking gear in the first place. That reminds me, my carrier for my body armor, I still had a bunch of the pouches and stuff like that from the desert. And the lady's like, hey, you got to take your pouches off. The extra stuff you can keep. And I did. And, dust is coming off and there's a smell of hits. And she kind of looked, she goes, did you get attacked by a dog? And she ran her finger through a hole. And I was like, mm-mm. And she's like, are you going to cry? Why does every guy cry when they turn in the body armor? I was like, well, I just remember what happened there. She's like, okay, all right. But what really upset me, I had to turn in my whoopee.
I would have went and bought one just so that way I could keep my old one.
It smelled like, well, it smelled like crap. Okay.
It smelled like ass.
But it was just, I was like, what are you going to do with the whoopee? I was like, what? Me and the whoopee were close. I would sleep up against a tree with a whoopee. It was always in my top pouch of my pack. Yeah. So the lady at clothing and an equipment facility, she's like, you guys always cry at the dumbest things. And then she's like, hey, can I have that patch? And I had a 18th Military Police Brigade combat patch on my body armor. And she goes, I'd like to put it on the wall. And I was like, okay. She takes it off. She reaches in a drawer. She goes, here, you keep that one, but I got one that looks just like it. Can I say this was from you? Yes. Because I wanted to keep that one. It was just, and I still have it. It's on my Love Me book.
Nah.
Right there. So yeah, there's like these different, when you're out processing, there's these different little moments where you realize that it's the last time I'll do this as a soldier. So yeah, it's emotional. And I would tell people, soak that up. That is a great feeling because you have both legs, both arms, fingers and toes. You can see everything's working. Yeah, you've got post-traumatic stress. And guess what? You better, because it's an unavoidable side effect of professional violence, period. And if you say you don't have it, you're just lying to yourself. And if you don't tell yourself that, yes, one day this job will end, you're lying to yourself again, quite honestly. And you will miss it for the rest of your life. And that's okay.
Man and his whoopee.
Love my movie. Very, very close.
So, what would you say is the single thing that gets in the way of finding your purpose while you're transitioning or finding that mindset that you need? What is that single thing that you think that we as transitioning service members and veterans have that gets in our way of finding that stuff?
Oh, a moment of entitlement, quite honestly, where you've held this key position that's major and you've got your evaluation report and you're learning how to write a resume and your evaluation report says that you were overseeing $10 million of government assets. Your budget was this, et cetera, et cetera. To the civilian, that's like, okay, we're a multi-million-dollar company. Ooh, so you held an account of $10 million. You've got to take the entitlement of, I earned this job I'm applying for. Because you didn't. Because there's some kid straight out of college who's got a master's degree in the field that you're applying for, but you got the like experience. And then you got to realize very quickly that you are competing not just with your pay grade for promotion or your MOS in a pay grade for promotion. You're competing with every single dude out there who is an adult age who considers themselves more of an expert than you. So get ready for that. Never hold on to that idea of entitlement, that I deserve this job. When I got offered the civilian gig, it started out as a GS-11. I'm like, oh wow, that's comfortable. A lot of people were really upset with me because they started out, GS5 and they had to work their way up, and it takes forever. And, I remember telling my boss, I said, hey, did I earn this? He's like, oh yeah, you definitely earned this. He's like, but you've been working on this job since 2010, doing everything I was doing behind the scenes with, suicide prevention. But always remind yourself that you may feel like you deserve that gig you're applying for. Oh, and by the way, you can apply for 20 gigs. You might not get a single phone call back. Be ready for that. And take transition services really seriously. Learn how to take your military training and word it appropriately in a civilian resume that doesn't make you look like some crazy assassin. Because a corporate community is not going to be like, so well, thank you. We don't need a sniper. How do you reword that? You gotta take that seriously. And I'm glad that the Army changed it to a 4-week program, because 2 weeks was not enough. It really wasn't. And people would complain about it. I can't believe I'm stuck in classes from 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. I'm like, to me, that's like the best schedule I ever had during transition. I'm not on call anymore. I'm sitting around other people who are doing the exact same thing I'm doing, and then they bring in all these agencies to talk to you about what they're looking for in their workforce, and if it interests you, et cetera, job fairs, all that jazz. That the transition services have really, really improved. And I'd hope across, the military as a whole, because it takes longer to transition out. It truly does. Mentally, you gotta be ready, because if you don't prepare yourself for that disappointment, when you're used to being called into the commander's office and you're standing in the carpet, say, hey, I got a job for you. You're the only one that's able to do this. Go forth, do great things. To, oh, well, great. Interviews are going to start at 11, and you get there at 10:30, 10:45, because that's how you were trained. If you show up on time, you're late. You get there, and there's a line of 50 other freaking dudes in the hallway competing for that one job that you were told, that you thought you were told by the recruiter, going, oh yeah, it's just for you. They don't tell you that. They don't say, oh, there's going to be like 100 people here, so get here early. It's civilian world is a lot harder than the military world, because, like you said, Chris, there's more command and control. It's there's a regiment. The expectation is easy to navigate. Not on the outside, not at all.
Craig, as always, it is an absolute pleasure, bro. Um, Thank you for everything that you're doing. Thank you for coming in here. Thank you for sharing your story more in depth. Thank you for giving more of that heartfelt um, commitment to everyone that's listening and learning from your story, right? You shared a lot of things that were private, right? That were very, very deep a part of you, right? And we want to keep that going. And thank you. We truly thank you. You're a part of the tribe.
My pleasure, man.
We appreciate you, and you're always welcome here, bro.
Thank you, dude.
Last parting words of wisdom that you want to share, that you're dying to share with everybody.
I would say never regret signing up once you do, and give it your all. You will get out of the military service what you put into it. Truly. So when you say things like it sucks, I would always tell people 75% of it, you're going to have more challenging days than anything else. But that other 25%, that's actually a rewarding day. There's nothing better than finishing up a hard day's work on a Friday. So you're doing nothing but mortal maintenance, and you're all coming together. And for a split second, as soon as you hear the first note of To the Colors and retreat, everything stops. And when you look around, you say, and people say, oh, that's robotic. No, it's not. A base will shut down for 60 seconds. Why? Because we're putting to rest the one thing we defend 24/7. And when you look around, you realize that it's done, and everyone just yells, "Whoa!" really loud, and you move on with the rest of your life. It's like, I'm part of that. They were looking at me. That little kid, when we're doing the parade, was looking at me and my guys. And you're part of something that's just, in my opinion, there's nothing more honorable than military service. So soak it up, enjoy it, and don't do dumb crap, or at least get caught.
I mean, I think dumb crap makes the experience a lot more interesting and memorable.
Yeah, yeah. Especially the crap that we used to do to brand new butter bars coming in the military. Oh my God.
We won't divulge so
Oh,
much, but
dude.
we definitely get some entertainment out of that. Hey, ladies and gentlemen that are listening to the show, thank you, Craig, for coming on here. We got Craig, who embodies a servant leader. We are honored to share this space with him and this moment together. Thank you again, brother, for coming on. Everybody that's out there listening right now, it is your transition. It's not all rainbows and unicorns. It's your transition. Take charge of it. MIl2Vet, out.